Ken Trahan along with Lenny Vangilder. It's our first NBC Bank weekend preview brought to you by First NBC Bank with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. It comes down to 4 games for the New Orleans Pelicans, 4 left for New Orleans, 4 left for Oklahoma City. They're tied for the final playoff spot in the West. New Orleans owns the tiebreaker, and tonight they host the Phoenix Suns at Smoothie King Center. Oklahoma City against Sacramento tonight. So, Lenny, bottom line, as I wrote at SportsNOLA.com, I really feel like if the Pelicans win 3 out of 4, they're in.
I think so. I think that, again, both teams, 4 games, 2 home, 2 away. The one commonality to the schedule is they both have to go to Minnesota. Other than that, it is different. And probably the toughest game left for Oklahoma City, I would think, is their Sunday trip to Indiana, because that is a much different team with Paul George on the floor than what it was previously. As it relates to the Pelicans, probably their toughest test is going to come Sunday as well when they have to go to Houston. So, this is obviously a must game. You don't want to fall behind at this point. You really want to keep pace because, like you mentioned, they got the tiebreaker. I'd just like to see it get to this, Ken. Get to Wednesday, let it be tied, and you win and you're in against San Antonio. If you could wish for that right now, if you're Monty Williams, let's just bypass the next 3 games. Let's get to Wednesday. It's tied. You win. You control your destiny, and you're in. That is the best you can hope for.
And how ironic would that be if it comes against Greg Popovich in San Antonio, Monty Williams' mentor, who really likes Monty Williams. But would he call off the Dogs? I don't think so, unless San Antonio has nothing to play for. Right now, they're in a dogfight for that 5th spot in the West with the Clippers. So right now, it looks like that game would mean a lot. So stay tuned. And as for the Thunder, they haven't stopped anybody. Read my piece at SportsNOLA about the astonishing number of points they've been giving up, which means Russell Westbrook has to go off, and Enes Kanter as well, if they want to win games. And it's tough to outscore people all the time.
It is. Although the simple matter is that you do want to outscore to win games, but still, you're right. You can't win games. They lost a game 135-131 the other night. You can't play that kind of game and sustain it for any length of time in the NBA. It's been proven time and time again. You could do it once in a while, but you're not going to do it over a long period of time. And you're right. Oklahoma City has to start locking down on defense. Even if they do get the 8th spot ahead of the Pelicans, it's going to be a very short run for them in the postseason.
Now, the big story here this weekend is a major league event, Grand Prix racing, IndyCar racing. It's the Grand Prix of Louisiana at NOLA Motorsports. Friday through Sunday, the big race on Sunday, dodging weather, obviously. Sunday looks better. Bottom line is it's a 3-year deal they've signed, so what a wonderful event. This gets back to the old axiom, if you build it, they will come. Built a great facility, and you lure arguably the top racing circuit in the world. I know Formula One's big. I know NASCAR's big in certain areas, but this is the fastest in terms of racing cars, and it's the most exciting from my perspective, and you got some big names here.
You do, and we had a chance to visit with a couple yesterday. Check out our video at SportsNOLA.com with Helio Castroneves and with Simon Pagino, part of Team Penske, and they dominated the first race of this series at St. Petersburg 2 weeks ago. 4 members of the team, they ran 1, 2, 4, 5. They qualified 1, 2, 3, 4. So qualifying is Saturday. The race itself Sunday afternoon. And look, unless there's lightning, they're running. So it's you think like other sports, like baseball perhaps, and you deal with the weather. They will run in the rain as long as there's not lightning in the forecast.
Sure do look forward to it, and really hope the weather works out. Tens of thousands of people have descended upon our community for something that is going to draw attention to our marketplace, not just this year, but for a couple of years to come, and hopefully for a long time to come beyond that. The New Orleans Saints preseason schedule release. We don't have specifics yet on 3 of the games. We do know they're going to Baltimore to start, and their first home preseason game is against New England. 3rd preseason game against the Texans. That has a fixed date because it's a national television game, and that's usually the dress rehearsal.
It is, and it's a Sunday afternoon game, which certainly means that final game is going to end up on a Thursday night at Green Bay. Couple of things that struck me as interesting on this. Week 1 at Baltimore is very close to West Virginia. It's very convenient for trying to accommodate the whole camp situation. We thought that might happen a year ago. Didn't work out that way. The real interesting part to me is week 2 against the Patriots. Does that mean that the Saints will break camp perhaps after week 1, come back down to New Orleans? Would we see some practices with the Patriots leading up to that game? We know the relationship between Sean Payton and Bill Belichick. Peyton has liked to do it in the past. Belichick likes to do that a lot in terms of practicing against other teams. I think he did it against 2 different teams at one point last year. So let's see if that plays out. I can't imagine they would do that in West Virginia and then both get on a plane and come down to New Orleans, so you can't rule out that possibility. Those are the things we'll see down the road, and we're not that far away from the announcement of the regular season schedule, probably in the next couple of weeks.
And in professional baseball, the New Orleans Zephyrs opened their 23rd campaign at Zephyr Field, lost to Omaha on Thursday night, opened the season with an 8-game homestand against Omaha and Iowa, a couple of traditional rivals. And obviously, it's family fun. It's great. They're dodging weather, too. It's an interesting team of older players, younger players, and in-betweens. Kind of an intriguing roster to look at, one that's kind of hard to read.
It is. Some good prospects, some older guys, as you mentioned, but you know, the thing you really want to look for, those guys really who are on the way up. And you don't just look for them on your own roster, you look for them on the other team's roster. And, you know, Omaha's got some of that. Iowa, when they come to town, really has that coming next week with Chris Bryant, although Baez, the second baseman, who's the second baseman of the future in Chicago, has taken a leave of absence due to the untimely death of his sister, so we may not see him here next week. But that is a very talented Iowa Cubs roster. I'd probably make the argument that you got more talent on that team than the one you got in Chicago right now.
College baseball, LSU hosting Auburn this weekend. They made a change on Sunday. They're going with Austin Bain, who pitched well in relief last Sunday. Godfrey's really struggled, so that's one notable change to look for the Tigers. Tulane at Houston, always tough to play there against a team that plays a tough schedule and is always good. And UNO at Northwestern State, and they'll play a doubleheader today and a single game Saturday, trying to dodge weather there in Natchitoches.
Yeah, and stay with us here at SportsNOLA, because all 3 of those series could have fluctuating schedules because of the weather, as it were. So we'll see how weather impacts those. LSU looking just to keep things rolling after the sweep at Alabama last week. This is a key series for Tulane. I mean, because they are, you know, they don't want to get themselves too far behind the 8 ball in the league, in what is a very competitive league. While Tulane's not part of the projection, 4 of the 8 teams in the American are being projected in the field of 64 at midseason by D1 baseball. So it's you know, that just goes to show you a lot of people didn't think this league might be as good from a baseball perspective. Guess what? It is.
And, of course, high school baseball, get ready. Galore, galore, galore. It's coming all over the place. Radio tonight, we've got Brother Martin and Rummel from Kirsch Rooney on WGSO 990 AM. Then our first NBC Bank Prep Showcase continues on Saturday. Trahan at Hanville, and a real showdown of 2 teams that are playing great. District title, high power ranking on the line there. That's a 2 p.m. game live on SportsNOLA.com on Saturday. Watch it tape delayed Sunday on WHNO. And then speaking of baseball, on Monday, we've got a doubleheader for you. St. Charles Catholic and Rummel at 4, Franklinton and Carr at 7 on SportsNOLA.com, tape delayed WHNO. Tuesday night next week, radio, Jesuit and Rummel from Kirsch Rooney. Wednesday, Newman and Riverside. And I don't know, I'm running out of breath here. Do I have anything else?
Yeah, we will. Your RV is being installed at Kirsch Rooney as we speak, because you'll be a resident and be able to vote in the next Kirsch Rooney election, I believe. So a lot of baseball coming your way from out there, no question about it. And the place to be to watch it all, right here at SportsNOLA.com or on WHNO TV 20, as our first NBC Bank Prep Showcase continues here through the month of April. Busy time, but the best time of the baseball season. Just a couple of weeks left in the regular season, working on those, you know, trying to wrap up district titles, seeds in the playoffs, home games, whatever the case may be. A lot to play for these teams.
Yes, and my wife will be a widow, since on Saturday night I also have to broadcast the New Orleans Voodoo, taking on the Orlando Predators at 7 at Smoothie King Center. Both teams coming in 1-1. Both teams beat Jacksonville by a point. Traditional rivals. Should be a good game.
Should be. Last of 3 in a row at home to get things started. You'd like to make that first road trip with a winning record. So a lot for the Voodoo to play for here.
That's our First NBC Bank weekend preview, brought to you by First NBC Bank, with 35 locations throughout Southeast Louisiana and the Florida Panhandle. That's First NBC Bank, proud sponsor of SportsNOLA.com. That's a mouthful. He's Lenny. I'm Kenny. Have yourselves a great weekend, and God bless you.